First, I want to welcome everyone to this webinar featuring Bethany Goneya, who is a mind mirror practitioner and biofeedback specialist for 30 years and manages the Resonant Peaceful Cities project and has really an international reach and has written an absolutely fantastic book that I'm very excited to share with you, and she will share with you also in a PowerPoint show. So welcome, Bethany. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thanks, Judith, for inviting me. It's just so fun to be with the Mind Mirror crew, so it's fun.
Wonderful. And then welcome to everyone else, too. I hope you had great holidays and wish everyone a very happy new year since we've turned that corner. And so I wanted to just start by asking Bethany to tell us a little bit about her background beyond even what I've just mentioned, because she had some life-altering events that led her into the field of biofeedback. And just anything you can say about that, Bethany, I think would be of interest to people.
Sure. You know, I was originally going to be a music teacher, and I was a musician at the Crane School of Music, and at the age of 21, my joints started to pull apart. The ligaments started pulling apart, and so my joints started spontaneously dislocating. It took 2 years to get a proper diagnosis, but in the end, I went to a researcher, and the researcher said, you know, what's happening to you is that you are hypermobile. This tends to happen to women in their childbearing years, and, you know, go home, take these anti-inflammatories. There's nothing medicine can do for you, and you'll tighten up around the age of 50. So I basically got in my car, and at that point, I used to sit on those egg crate cushions that, you know, people in often nursing homes sit on, and I cried my eyes out because at that point, I think I was 23, and I felt like I was 93, and I said, this isn't a life for me. I went on to graduate school, and I even had to have people take notes from me because my shoulders would dislocate so much. So what also happened at the same time is I had it seemed to be a Kundalini awakening in my 20s. Now, I didn't even know what Kundalini was, and I didn't know what the word chi. So I had these kind of electrical storms going on at the same time. A lot of, and for some reason, I had this weird awareness of where my mind was parked, or where my mind, the locus of my consciousness was. And so I used that to work myself through that. And eventually I was able to run 4 miles a day. I got myself together, not realizing, and I was just trying to go to sleep at night and get out of pain. Like that was all I was trying to do, not realizing I was going to like teach this stuff, you know? And then at one point after a while, I started saying, you know, I would hear people complain about different things, and I'd say, you know what, it doesn't have to be that way. There's ways that we can work with the mind body, and we can move things through our system. So I just started exploring how to share how I kind of found my way out of my own encapsulation and share it with others. And it's deep work, and that's why I'm super thrilled to be here with the Mind Mirror community, because you all have done deep work in your own fields, and I can't talk this deep with the average people. So this is so fun for me to be with people that I know you bring this huge body of information and work from your own fields. So so I'm just thrilled to be with you all today and share, because I know you'll hear this at a very deep level, and that's what I'm thrilled to be having the opportunity to do.
Wonderful. And, you know, I might speak out loud something that's really been going through my mind a lot as first I read your book and then reviewed it just before now. And it's that you really speak to and communicate with in a very loving and gentle and encouraging voice to the common man, someone who knows absolutely nothing about the mind-body field of neuroimmunology, and that is fantastic. I mean, everyone in our webinar I Am community certainly has got certain knowledge that's going to be about mind-body to start with. They wouldn't come to the Mind Mirror if that weren't the case. But you start earlier. You start with helping people anchor their awareness in the body. You talk about the default mode network as the inner terrorist, and then explain how we're going to, through your book and through the meditations that are at the end of every chapter, be working with the task positive network. You talk about how people anchor their mind in suffering. So there's all these little epiphanies and ahas all throughout the book. Anchoring people in the abdomen and the electrical power center, and then you go on to talk about the scar tissue in the heart, and then how people can free themselves from emotional addictions. So you're actually getting people ready to do excellent mind mirror work. You know, your people who are in high beta are the people that you're talking to in the first few chapters, and getting them prepared to have the kind of mental focus that does the best work with the mind mirror and allows people really to enter meditation. And it wasn't even just the narrative in the book. It was that you backed up everything you were saying with a lot of science that was very wide-ranging. And in your own experiences, a few personal experiences, but also your experiences in teaching children in classroom settings, and that was absolutely wonderful. And then you go all the way through emotional healing and heart freedom to spirituality. Only you're very wise not to really call it that. You were basically talking about moving into wholeness through, and there was this one little phrase that I really loved, through diving into the sea of intelligent energy. And you talked about that as being the slow delta waves and letting go into lightness and using the light in meditation. And I think that by the time mainstream people get to that chapter, they've had so many experiences through listening to your meditations that they're much better able to accept that language, and that there is even an intelligence within themselves and within the field itself. And so you just really start at A and go to Z in this book, and I just encourage everyone to read it. It's absolutely wonderful. And I think, I'm going to make a gift of it to someone, and maybe several someones who are really struggling, because the gentle, encouraging tone of voice and the meditations up on your website are just so healing and useful to people. I just absolutely love the book.
Thanks, Judith. That's high praise coming from Miss Judith, right? But thank you so much. But I'm a champion of the common person, right? And I really feel as though teaching those children just makes you take it down to brass tacks, like basics. And teaching those children, influences how I teach adults. And so I'm just a big fan that there is this amazing stuff. There's this whole world happening underneath our nose and in our energy field, and we're constantly looking outside of it, right? So we're constantly looking out there, but there's all this stuff happening right here that we're just skipping right over. And yet this, as you'll see, is like where the action happens, and then the outside will take care of itself. So at least that's my theory. That's my working hypothesis. So,
do you want to say something about the whole concept of consciousness athlete, or is that covered in the PowerPoint show?
No, that's good. I totally forgot about that actually in the PowerPoint. So I like that you brought that out. It's this idea of, I guess it's a lot of my musical training and meditation training, right? So people sit down and they try to meditate, and their mind's wandering, ruminating without boundaries. And then they say, oh, I can't meditate. I can't do it, But really, if we had kind of set the body up to be calibrated to meditate, then we're able to move into those places. And so I liken that to being able to tune the body the way an athlete, to kind of condition the body the way an athlete would condition their body, right? So an athlete has to go to the gym day after day after day. An athlete wouldn't just go to the gym once and think that their body's fine, right? It's this idea that you're conditioning your nervous system over time to be able to hold these expansive states. Another analogy I like to use is tuning an instrument, right? The instrument needs to be tuned to get the best music out of it. So if we can tune ourselves, and then we can't just tune ourselves once, it's every day tuning, calibrating, tuning to, my punchline is the divine. It's really my life's goal is how much can I make my awareness like a satellite dish to the divine, and how can I tune myself to those frequencies day after day.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, this is a great intro to start your PowerPoint presentation then, so I know that's what you're going to cover.
So yeah, the title of this is about intention for body, mind healing, and I added happiness, because we're going to see they kind of go together. And on some level, you know, the part of the reason why I talk kind of so basic and so simple is I often feel, if I were to describe myself like that line from Edie Brickell, I know what I know, if you know what I mean. I'm very simple. Like I don't know much about too many things. I just know what I know, if you know what I mean, you know, and that's kind of what this whole book is about. You know, I'm not a PhD, I'm not this or that. I know what I know, and it seems to help other people. So I'm going to be sharing that today. This kind of journey that I'm going to take us all on, and I'm taking it on. And like I said, I know that because I'm working with you all, that you all are, so well trained, and you all know so much that I have ambitious goals for where we can get today in our journey. And this is another reason why, as I was thinking about presenting to you all, knowing how much you all already know in your own fields, is this idea we're going to open today with a mind-body exploration. And one of the first things I want to do is for us to kind of actually even take a moment, and I'll take you through this in the exploration, but this idea of emptying ourselves of ourselves. Right. So this idea that when martial artists will enter the dojo, it's symbolic that they kind of bow their head, and this idea of emptying the mind of the mind to be teachable. Now, the reason why I'm suggesting that is because we are all know so much, right? Like, so I could do this exercise and you'll be like, oh yeah, I know this before. I've done this before. And I'm going to ask you if we can all go into beginner's mind, right? Because in the beginner's mind, there are many options, and the expert's mind, there are few. So in the meditation, this brief opening thing, we're going to do a little bit of that, just kind of like allow ourselves to clear ourselves with some knowledge. And then I'm going to take you down into the body, and we're going to do an exploration. And in this exploration, really kind of be with it, because it's going to be kind of how we build, like you can use that as your own litmus test to see how you're applying the work as we go on. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up some music here. If you can all get a little bit settled, it's not going to be a long meditation. It's more of an exploration. That's why I call them explorations, not meditations. Okay, perfect. So if we can all just take a moment, allow yourself to get settled into your chair wherever you are. Inviting the breath deep down into the body. Allowing your shoulders to move far away from your ears, elbows heavy, wrists loose. Becoming aware of your body in space in front of you and behind you, to the left and to the right. And imagining on a whiteboard ahead of you all of your knowledge, all of the things that you've studied over the years. Just imagine all of that knowledge. And we're going to take a moment and just imagine an eraser coming along and just erasing the whiteboard. Allowing yourself to go back to basics. Not to be so clever. Wiping away any of that study and that knowledge. And allow yourself to sink into being. And just allow your awareness to roam throughout your body. And set a kind orientation with yourself. So as it gently roams, how kind can you be towards yourself? Being sure to relax both of your feet, allowing them to feel very heavy. And feel a kind awareness to your feet. Your ankles and your calves. Relaxing any gripping at the knees and the thighs. And how much can you surrender to the chair or the surface you're sitting on? Feeling it underneath you, releasing and letting go. Allowing yourself to feel held, supported. Moving your kind awareness up from the hips to the lower abdomen and back. Very much becoming aware of your back. If you have it up against a surface, surrender to that surface. Allowing the universe to, quote, have your back. How good it feels to just trust, to surrender, to be held. Moving that kind awareness around to the front of the abdomen, to the heart area. Moving your awareness to the lower throat, the middle throat, jaw. Becoming aware of the space above the left shoulder and the space above the right shoulder. Relaxing the ears and the muscles above the ears. The crown of the head. Imagine opening that. Relaxing the eyes and the back of the eyes. Cheeks, lips, of course the back of the tongue. And then imagine someone coming along and wiping your forehead away of any worries, of any anxieties. Allowing the forehead to become smooth and serene. And anywhere in the body that you're feeling anything hitched or stuck, move your kind awareness into that area, invite it to let it go. Feeling the wholeness of the space around you, like a concave or a perfectly formed, say, egg of the energy field. And now from this place of awareness, bring to mind your greatest stressor. Whatever would make you raw, whatever is your biggest nemesis right now, so to speak, scan your body head to toe. Notice where you are clutching, gripping, and grasping. Bringing that to mind. And really explore what part of your body is being engaged as you think about this stressor. And moving your awareness into the area and start to explore it. Start to explore, where does the tightness begin and end? Is it on the surface of the body or deep within? Moving your awareness in and around this area. And often the easy stuff comes off first, but then often there's something there left. And now taking a moment and become aware of how every time you think of this particular thing, this part of your body activates. So what if you could think of the same issue and have that area be completely released and let go? So maybe imagine the person involved in front of you. If it's a situation or a thing, imagine the thing in front of you. And can we move our awareness into that spot and allow it to be surrendered? Like it's like opening your palm, which can take great courage, and allowing this gentle awareness to come through. And notice any resistance to that. But what would it be like if every time you thought of that challenge, you would have it like an open palm and love could go in and through it? Practicing maybe weaving love between you and the item or you and the person. And if you have a faith, sending out a quick prayer saying, Spirit, help me. Help me to love, help me to be present, help me to be at peace with this. And practice holding that area open in the presence of that. And then seeing if you can move that awareness out into the space in front of you up to about at least 6 inches. Moving your kind awareness in and around and surround. And then if there's a way you could symbolically surrender this over to either a higher power or your subconscious, but something, you all, I know you can do this. And just imagine surrendering and letting it go. Let it go. It's not you. Let it go. And now bringing your awareness to another stressor. Scan your body, head to toe, front, back, left, right. Where in your body are you clutching, gripping, and grasping? Now, what's happening there? Know that every time you think that thought, it is that part of your energy field that is financing that thought. And notice how it's probably in a different place than the first one. So this idea that our thoughts are financed by our energy, and they have locations in the body. So let's take a moment now and explore this. Imagine moving your kind awareness into that area. Kind of swimming in and through it and around it, exploring it. Seeing yourself in front of your stressor, and you're going to bring love back and forth. Asking yourself to be teachable on how to hold this in peace. And let that go. And we'll just try one more. If you have another stressor, often the third stressor is actually the one that's pertinent to us. Number 1 tends to be mom, number 2 is dad, 3 is self. So scanning your body head to toe, bringing to mind your third stressor. Where are you clutching, gripping, or grasping? Breathing deep into it, exploring it, being so kind and loving with yourself. Like, welcome to the human race. It's why we're here, is to work on this. pausing, thinking about if any of those areas actually relate to a health condition, and notice if they're familiar areas. And we're going to talk about that. So when you're ready, allowing yourself to stay aware of the space around you as we come back together. So does anyone have anything they wanted to share on this? You guys are a quiet group. Still trying to see that. There we go. Now I can see everybody. Okay. What did you learn?
We just talk out. Doesn't matter the order.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, thanks. It was just the awareness in the body.
Yeah. Right.
Where I was holding. I just skip over it a lot of times. I don't really take notice, but thank you.
Wow, thank you for that, because that's what I was saying, right? Is we're always looking outside and we're skipping right over this huge boulder inside of us that is actually the key to our liberation. Did anyone notice that where they were clutching, gripping, or grasping is where they had a health challenge?
Yep.
Yeah. Does anyone want to share? I like to have people share where they're gripping and grasping. And the reason why I like to have people share that is so you realize how different we all are, right? So I'll give you an example. Years ago, every time I had the feeling that I was an odd person, because I might be a little on the odd side, my left knee I would feel it when I was healing in my 20s. I realized that my left knee pain would get worse when I would think about how, quote, odd I was, because who else had these experiences, right? So did anyone else notice that that it went with, or I'll give you another example. Usually, very often, women will say they're tightening in their throat, and I'll say, are you on thyroid medication? And they'll say yes. One time I was working with a young woman, and she said she was tightening her throat, and I said to her, geez, if you were older, I'd ask if you were on thyroid medication. And she said, I am. So does anyone want to share? Because it helps people kind of get this. You know, if you noticed you were gripping somewhere and you have back pain and you noticed it was in the back, like, anyone want to share and add their insight?
I go ahead.
No, go ahead, please. Oh, now I'm not hearing you. Ask to unmute. Oh, there we go. Are you there? I guess you're muted. There.
Unmute. There it is. All right. So when you said mother, father, and associated those with the different areas in the body that may have been grasping or gripping, why mother, father?
It just seems to be a layer thing that I heard that years ago. And it seems as though people the first one is mom, usually when you're first stressor. The second one will be dad. And the third one is the one that you get real personal, and people will often go into tears, or somehow the third one is kind of like the first two are fluff. And then we kind of come down, and often the third is the one that actually is the one that is, that's just something I've seen clinically for years. It doesn't have to always be true, but it's definitely something I've seen to really happen. Did you resonate with that at all, or no?
I just have L3, L4, L5, like just spinal bulge disc from golf, which is unfortunate. But when you said dad, I felt my L4 in a subtle way, and I'm like, really? Because I know lower back, has to do with like money or whatever, and he always had issues with that, and maybe it's just like leftover family stuff I need to get rid of that doesn't serve me any longer. And it certainly not helping my golf swing either. I gotta tell you that much.
Right. Now, interesting. Right? No, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect, right? So we're having these things, and our minds are doing these loops, and it's hitting our energy field in the same place, and it's putting wear and tear on the system. And there's never been a research study on this that I know of. I just know that this is how I found my way out of my own pain disorder. And it seems to be universal, that this is the way we're all kind of wired. But most of us are not tuned because we're so outwardly focused. We're not home in the body long enough to recognize these connections. So that's really cool, because now you have an opportunity to sit and maybe work with your lower back pain from a totally different perspective. And that's what the book is about learning how to, okay, so you figured it out, now what do you do with it? So it's
So just
really,
I want to point out something. I'm past the point of blaming my parents. Just wanted to let you know that.
oh yeah. No,
So,
I agree. Right?
I just have that associated with, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
do you have like an intention you set for that in letting go, or like how do you let that go?
Yeah, well, we're gonna talk a little bit more about all of that, and when we get to the end, I'll do another closing one, and maybe you might want to work there. It's going to be on the heart, but you could work there, because what I do in the heart, you could do there. So yeah, and I won't tell you. I always say this work is simple, but it's not easy. But I've learned that you just keep hacking away at it, and it eventually gives. I've worked with enough people over the years that like you just keep hacking at it. And I'll talk more about that. The other thing is, notice how I'm wanting to give you a lot of love, because there's a way that we can anchor the mind and the body. So it's almost like become aware of your right elbow right now. And now become aware of your right elbow with love. Right? It's kind of like my third book. I know it's going to be about this quality of consciousness, not just this depth, this saturation in Tai Chi and the martial arts, this idea of packing Chi, like there's subtleties of using Chi and the mind together. So anyway, so now my theory on this is my working model of the world, is that when we clutch, grip, or grasp, right, these are our acupuncture meridians. And we're literally financing that area, those thoughts, that rumination pattern, that can be right below consciousness, like right there, but we're not aware of them. And so we're financing it. And then what does that do? That impacts our health. That's why, people's thyroids will be, shut down, because they're literally squishing in the throat, so to speak. Now, I look at this as, there's this, everybody knows that Buddha says, all suffering comes from attachments, right? So I consider these gripping places are these attachments. Okay. And so the ego hates to hear that. Oh, all suffering comes from attachments, right? And you think, well, if I'm not going to live with no attachments, well, that's no fun, right? Because we're here and you work to have an attachment, because you wouldn't just work without an attachment, right? You wouldn't work to not earn money, right? That seemed very silly to me. But when I got into this, I was like, oh, now I get what an attachment is. It's that gripping in the body, right? And so this idea, can you be present with the world without having that grip? This is also, I'm sure you've often heard this, the first and second arrow, right? And I don't know where, tradition, Zen maybe, this idea that something bad happens to us and that's the first arrow, but it's the second arrow that is what we do to ourselves, right? So the pain can happen, but then it's what we tell ourselves about the pain that is really where the damage happens. So the attachment is kind of like the second arrow, right? Life happens, bad things happen. Can we hold it and still kind of be open and expanded, but and go forward? This is really pertinent when it comes to grieving. I have worked a lot with people in grieving, and so when people recognize, if I remember, I worked with a woman whose son had just committed suicide. And she was there, and he just happened like 2 weeks before. And so I taught her this whole thing of the whole body and finding the grieving. And when you see that grieving is not a global phenomenon, it's actually one area of the body usually. And when people kind of go, okay, there's my grief, all this is more released, but this is my grief. And so we stop. What can happen is we can look at the grief and go, this is me. This is all there is to me. I'm all into this grief. That's all it is. But then when people kind of become aware of the body and notice, oh no, this grief isn't like this global thing, it's actually like right in the solar plexus or right whatever, they kind of can work around the grief a little bit easier and have it not be all consuming. So, all right, so moving on. So years ago, does anyone know this gentleman? His name is Dr. Trivedi, right? Or not Dr. Trivedi, or his name is Trivedi. And years ago, I saw him when Deepak Chopra introduced him to the world. And what's interesting about him is that the Trivedi effect is basically that he could wave his hands and plants would grow taller and trees would get, there's all this research about the Trivedi effect. It's him just running energy basically. But the funny thing about him years ago when I saw him is I remember seeing him on stage and I was completely enamored by the way the guy moved. And I was saying, why am I obsessively looking at this guy move on stage? Like, what is going on, you know? And I realized by the end is that his body was so surrendered. He was moving with absolutely no stress in the body. And I thought, well, that makes sense. If you knew you could wave your hands and have trees, you know, plants grow taller and vegetables, and, you know, and you knew God was literally through your fingertips, like how relaxed would your body be, right? And he kind of sauntered on stage and I just was, you know, and as finally it sunk in, I'm like, oh, it's because he's so surrendered. And I remember working with Judith in the Mind Mirror, and she was explaining that, you know, sometimes very old souls or whatever that have this very surrendered body in the galvanic skin response and things like that. And so that's been an interesting thing in the back of my mind is how can I have my body be as surrendered as possible? And that's how I've gotten through all of my health challenges and everything. So here's the thing. So that's the model that we're kind of going for. So here's the secrets, 2 secrets that nobody ever tells you about getting rid of your attachments, right? Going back to Buddha, is when you release those attachments, here's good news, nobody tells you, is that when you release that clutching, gripping, and grasping, you now have more energy to finance joy, right? Because before your energy is getting caught up and it's financing that whole rumination pattern, but you finally break that pattern, that's freedom, that's liberation, right? And then also what happens is your health challenges move. So these are the secrets to getting rid of attachments, or this is like why getting rid of attachments is a good thing. It doesn't mean you have to sell your house and get rid of everything. It just means that you don't want to have your house be something that is clutching in your field, that you know, you're walking in the house doesn't own you, you know, you own you own yourself in the house kind of thing. All right, moving on. So another thing that kind of got me thinking in this direction is I'm going to share with you my 3 heroes. These are people that have done this journey. And they to me, these people are my Roger Bannisters. And if you remember Roger Bannister, he was the person who broke the 4-minute mile. Before Roger Bannister, they said, nobody could run faster, do a mile in less than 4 minutes. Roger Bannister came along, he did it. Now all these people run below the 4-minute mile. So these 3 people I want to share with you because I want to help us all stretch our awareness of what's possible in the human condition. And these are my heroes. They're my people that I'm modeling my life after, and you might find it interesting. And the 3 people are Lester Levinson, Peace Pilgrim, and Brother Lawrence. I'm going to quickly go through. Does anyone have any thoughts? I'm willing to stop anytime to talk to people. Go for it. Yeah, thank you.
I'll share something. I wanted to share this from the beginning. One of the most brilliant things that you did with us was at the very beginning, like a martial artist, you asked us to empty ourselves. For me, that's the whole message here. Yeah. When I'm able to do that, it feels like it puts me in that kind of, there's the possibility for me to be in that Trivedi free movement space.
Yeah.
And then I can go exploring for whatever is not that. Which you helped us do. And I just want to underline that. That's so wonderful for me.
Isn't that nice? I'll get people on the instruments and they'll be really smart people. And I tell them, don't be so clever, right?
Yes.
You know, and they say the closer you get to God, the simpler you get. In the Tao Te Ching, it's about becoming as dumb, like being really, but
Can I share one more thing about me?
go ahead.
At last, I think it was a week ago, I was talking with my colleague, my deep sharing colleague. We were talking about something in my life, and she said, is there something that you're afraid of that's holding you back from this? And I sat back, and I'm not an afraid person, you know. So, but what I realized is that I really am afraid of being as free as a bird.
Oh, so fascinating.
And that's it. And I think it's exactly what we're talking about here.
Oh, that's so fun. Can you scan your body head to toe and know where that sets in your body?
Yes, I know where it is. And my heart is beating like thunder right now.
Wow, beautiful opening. Yeah, we can all ask ourselves that, right? What would keep us from feeling free as a bird? What a rich question. Wow. And notice if you have any resistance to that. The reason why I say that is I remember I was working with some kids and they were from the inner city and I brought them to an open area. And I thought it would be so neat that we could do a sky meditation. And we were looking at this college. And I remember this girl from the inner city and it was a safe college. And she said, that doesn't look safe, right? This big open area. So this idea that we could have this resistance to something that's open and free and just noticing that. Can we get used to that spaciousness? Okay. Thank you. That is so rich. I'm going to be working with that myself. Thank you. I know my spot too. That's awesome. All right. So you'll see these people really kind of did this. Now they weren't using the language that I'm using, but I'm suspecting that based on what I've been learning, what they say, when you put them together, it makes a whole lot of sense. So does anyone has heard of the Sedona method? Right. So, it's there. He's famous. This is Lester Levinson. He was famous for the questions, can I let this go? Would I let it go? And when? Now, Lester Levinson was sent home to die at the age of 42. And his heart was so damaged that they told him to get his affairs in order. And he went home and he had this. Now think about it. His body's completely contracted. His heart's probably got a big shroud right over it, right? And so he's sitting there in this energetically contracted space. And then all of a sudden he has a fleeting memory of loving an old girlfriend. And what happened, right? So he flourishes into love. Now, if you're sitting here like this with your energy field all contracted and then you go into love, you're going to feel that contrast, right? So he was aware enough to go, okay, wow, something just happened. Whoa. And then he challenged himself is could he, if he got rid of any non-loving thought, could he heal himself? And he spent the next, I believe it was 10 years or so for him to completely open and to pretty much do, I think, the same process that we were just doing. And then what happened was, in the end, is this idea, he would ask the question, how high is up? Because once you surrender to the body, there's more to surrender to. That love is infinite. Like we think love is like this endpoint. No. Like that's just like the beginning of love, right? And so he used to say, how high is up? Meaning that up is only up compared to this. But then if this were to move, then up is higher and then up is higher. And that he just said love was infinite. So how much can we just kind of fall into love? So that was so he inspired me as well. Peace Pilgrim, I know many of you know her. She basically it took her about 15 years to do this process. And she leaves a book. She's got this thing called Steps Towards Inner Peace. And she literally talks about her steps of relinquishment. She realized young that her life was, for those of you who don't know Peace Program, She was look at this beautiful woman. She grew up in the 1920s. She was very much enamored with all materialism. And then she realized that that was a trap. And so she started to go through this process of relinquishment and letting go. And then once she hit this level inside of herself, she decided she was going to walk until given shelter and fast until given food, until all men had experienced inner peace. And she walked on roads for 28 years, crisscrossing through the US. And to the point, I think she was 73 or 78 when she passed. And the day before she died, she was on a radio show, and a radio host said, "You seem to be the most happy woman." And he said, "How can one know God and not be joyous?" So for 28 years, this woman would sleep under bridges, just with a pen in her, nothing except for walking. And wherever she went, she would share the wisdom of peace. Right? Incredible health to be able to do this. And in Peace's journey, I always love this because this quote really stuck with me. And this idea that she reaches this point, this nexus point, this pivotal point within herself. And she says, so there were hills and valleys, lots of hills and valleys. And then in the midst of the struggle, there came a wonderful mountaintop experience. And for the first time, I knew what inner peace was like. I felt a oneness with my fellow human beings, a oneness with all creation. I have never really felt separate since. I could return again and again to this wonderful mountaintop, and then I would stay there for longer and longer periods of time, and then just slip out occasionally. But then came a wonderful morning when I woke up, and I knew that I would never have to descend again into the valley. I knew that for me, the struggle was over. That finally I had succeeded in giving my life for finding inner peace. Again, this is a point of no return. You can never go back into the struggle. The struggle is over now because you will do the right thing and you don't need to be pushed into it. So this idea that, Lester Levinson, about 10 years, it took her about 15 years. This is doable. Like this is not a vague thing. It's very binary. It's very a location in the body as we release and let go. So finally, I'll also share with Brother Lawrence. And this is the first person I had ever heard of this. My mom explained to me about Brother Lawrence when he was when I was pretty young, and she explained to me about this monk who basically would shoot. I really want to make sure I had this already. This monk who basically would, he thought about God as much as he could. And long story, he was a soldier. He had hurt himself in the war. He was very clumsy in the 30 Years' War, and he's a Carmelite monk. And he basically felt like he was useless, he was poor. He had nothing going for him. And just out of absolute whatever, he put himself to work for a monastery, and he was working in the kitchen. And again, there's the contrast where he was limping and horribly hurt and miserable. And then he'd go into the sanctuary and he could feel the contrast between his energy, and he started going, I want that feeling in the sanctuary all the time. So every time he picked up a dish to wash, he would wash it for God. Everything he did, he swept, he brought God into it. He brought God into everything. And it took him about 10 years for him to kind of reach that place, that threshold where that you'll never go any lower again. And he hit that threshold. And then it was a total of 30 years where he just got crazy happy. He got so happy that he wouldn't speak, and dignitaries would come and sit with him, even though he was a lay monk. And he would say very little. And people would listen to him. And he left writings. You can get this on the internet, called The Practice of the Presence of God. And he talked about how he was so in joy and delight that he would keep his mouth shut because people wouldn't understand the level of space he was in. So these are the three people that to me really left us breadcrumbs. This is possible. It's not vague. It's not guesswork. It's literally you go into your field, you start releasing. Now, granted, I've been working with one group for 5 years now, where we've just been working inside and then we're working in the field. So we're constantly cleansing the field and working inside. And I find it really interesting because we all started out with intentions, sharing intentions, but then after a while, our intentions were all about manifesting states of being. And so now we're all just practicing. What's it like to be hanging out in beauty, and how do we tolerate beauty? So I can pause there. We're going to go into the heart and kind of close up a little bit. But anyone have any thoughts or comments on this? Isn't it fun?
I will comment that I'm just buzzing.
Oh, good deal.
That's it.
I love it. I love it, right? Learning. Years ago, I heard the phrase from Pathwork, learning to endure the state of bliss, right? So just savoring that buzzing and just going, yeah, this is me up leveling right now, right?
I'll share that I remember some point in my life where I realized that I was resisting these moments of, I don't know if I can bear this much energy in me. Yeah. And so finally I just said, well, I'm just going to learn how.
Nice. And what did you learn?
It was just that I noticed, like what you're asking us to notice, that I was trying to hold on, you know. Actually today I was thinking of this phrase that came to me of letting go for dear life. That's what rather than holding on for dear life, I just suddenly started letting go for dear life.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Sweet. Yeah. Yeah. And learning to tolerate that, right? Learning how beauty and is something that we need to develop a capacity for. I was asking Spirit years ago why I do this peace meditation research. I remember asking Spirit why it's so hard. You know, I'm asking people to sit and be quiet and lower their blood pressure, reduce their pain, sleep better at night, open their heart, be happier, and lift the world. Why is this so hard? Like, why am I begging people to do this peace meditation research when there's all these amazing benefits that you can do in your living room and lift the world? Like, what was the problem? And Spirit basically said, you know, we've been losing our ability to tolerate sweetness, and that was what I was up against, right? This resistance to meditation, this resistance. And Spirit said to me, you know, you saw beauty as a child, and then the people around you didn't, so you started to shut down, right? So can we start raising, in the Peace Project, we really encourage beautiful feelings and fostering feelings and laughter and sweetness. And what you realize is that's actually the power place to be. Like, we think the power place is going to be to armor up, right? Hold your heart, blah, blah, blah. But that's not where high skill comes in. That's not where, you know. So anyway, so yeah, this idea of embracing beauty is part of the journey. So I love the way you brought that out. Cool. Anyone else have anything? Love is infinite. That's a fun thing. We get to do this till the day we die, and while we're dying, by the way. That's my plan. So now I know you're all, again, you're so educated. So that I'm going to talk briefly about heart rate variability, but not the way we usually talk about it, but just more like what's happening inside the body when we're in heart rate variability. And, you know, here is obviously the heartbeats. And heart rate variability basically means that the time between heartbeats is variable, right? So this is 0.859 seconds. Between this beat and this beat is 0.793 seconds. This is 0.726. Now, in the stress response, that would be the same, you know, and it would be more like a clock, a ticker, right? We're going to say 0.8 seconds, right? 8.8 seconds, 0.8 seconds, 0.8 seconds. That's actually the body in stress response, okay? And that's actually not the body in a healthy place at all. But when we can release our hearts, we move into heart rate variability. And the only way I can say it is that the healthy heart dances, right? I'm sorry, what was your name, Joel? Yeah, like you were talking about how your heart was starting to right? So you're moving into greater coherence, greater heart rate variability there. So a healthy heart dances. And yet what happens is, as we go through the lifespan and we deal with all the betrayals and the struggles and the illnesses and the this and the that, the heart can go into lockdown. So the electromagnetic signal of the heart basically goes into a static signal, and it can create more depression and all that places that we get stuck. So this idea of releasing the heart to being able to move into heart rate variability puts off this variable signal, and it's a dancing feeling, right? That's why he's feeling so much buzzing and movement or whatever. That's your energy field when it's starting to cook and move. Okay. So we talk about coherence, and I always say a happy heart means happiness for no good reason. I've done a lot of work with the Institute of Heart Math, and they can make this beautiful work, and they have to be, because they're a science and research organization. But it's always amazed me how they can take this amazing body of work and make it sound so boring and dull. So my lay way of saying this is like, you want to just poke your eye out sometimes. And I'm like, come on, this is amazing work. Can we just make it, can we just talk about the beauty of it, right? So this idea that a happy heart, yes, you make good decisions the way they say, you know, good things happen. But this idea that I'm just going to say, lay person saying, you just get happy for no good reason. You can go and do some heart work and then go wash the dishes, and you're going to be happier washing the dishes. It's just what happens. There's no magic here, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about forgiveness, and then we're going to close and we're going to do some heart work. But this idea that forgiveness is really this idea of letting things go in the body, letting all the clutching and gripping, grabbing go, and what magic could happen if we were to do that. So I'm just going to share with you some brief forgiveness stuff. Research has shown that forgiveness makes us stronger. So they had people do a fitness test, and some of the people were primed with a forgiveness thing, and some people were primed with resentment before doing the fitness test. And those that were primed with forgiveness were able to jump higher, and they were able to do greater fitness when they were primed to forgive. And what we're all talking about here makes sense, right? We're all just letting go, so you have more energy to jump higher, right? I think I backed up sorry, this was me putting the wrong thing in the wrong place. All right, now I'm going to share with you, has anyone ever heard of this 40 years of Zen? Yeah, I figured Judith has, right? So 40 years of Zen, last time I knew a few years ago, it cost $15,000 for 5 days at 40 years of Zen. They do brain mapping and QEEG training and things like that. Now, I heard this from Vishen Lakhiani, whatever, the CEO of Mind Valley, and he talked about how he went and they have these proprietary tools. Well, guess what their proprietary tool is forgiveness. Forgive everything. Right. And so he literally sat there for 5 days, all hooked up in a helmet and all that kind of stuff. And it was this idea that they just went through their life and they forgave anyone, like your bus driver in 4th grade, the waitress at the thing, he just would look, he spent 5 days just finding anything he could do to look and forgive. And they got alpha spikes. Right. So imagine that, like that's their proprietary thing, is just release, surrender, right? I just want to share that with you. I'm not Christian, but this is something where we can see that the Christian tradition has a lot of this in it. I was raised Christian, so I'm very familiar with it. But there's this quote that's, well known, Matthew 18:21-22. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Jesus answered, I will tell you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7 times, or 77 times. Now, when biblical scholars look at the numerology of that, what it's really interpreted is that you forgive an infinite number of times. There's no limit. Like you can let go of yourself for maybe eating the wrong thing that you had for breakfast this morning. Like maybe you're holding a little small resentment about like what you ate for breakfast this morning. Poof, let it go. So this idea of taking the same idea that we were just doing, but we're going to close up now with the heart, because this heart hygiene, I call it the kind of a dynamic lifestyle of forgiveness. And this idea that we kind of every day take care of our hearts the way you would take care of a garden, right? So in a garden, you have to pull out the weeds every day. So every day, if we were to pull out resentments from our heart, look for anything, pull out the resentments. And then, like any other garden, you need to feed and water it, right? Give it nourishment. So we need to give our hearts nourishment of good information and good company, and really nourish our heart. Like treat it like it's something to be worthy of managing, right? Like there's another line in the Bible. It says, above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. So you're really like making this a priority of taking care of your heart every day, and then provide it with light, right? A garden needs light. And so, love and God, I kind of see that as light. There's times I've woken up in the middle of the night and been bathed in light, and I call it God bathing, where I just kind of bring in light. And I just imagine, especially when I had COVID and I could feel my chest, I could almost feel how people could end up in ventilators. I could feel the hardness coming into my field. And I was like, oh, geez, I was like, well, wow, this is when people end up on ventilators. I mean, to me, COVID had this hardness to it. And I just remember going, okay, Beth, this is it. You're going to spend tonight, bathing in God. And I literally just imagined all night long, just bathing in God's love, bathing in God's love. And sure enough, by the next day, I could feel the hardness lessening. This work it wasn't magic. It wasn't like the next day I was like a spring in my step, but I knew I had turned the corner on that hardness. See, what happens is we sit in the body and we just go, oh, I'm getting worse. I'm getting worse. But when you start working with these skills, once I realized I was heading not to a good place, I was like, okay, it's time for me to jump in and start working on my own energy field. Okay. And I always say, you don't have to do any of this, but only if you want to be happy, healthy, and well, right? Like we don't have to forgive anybody, but we forgive for ourselves, right? We forgive because we want that freedom. And it is the journey here that we're supposed to wake up in the physical and go, oh my God, that's right. That's right. The game here is a game of wake up, and I'm waking up and I'm going, that's right. I think I'm this human being, but actually I'm this soul on this expansive journey, and I'm walking with my children in this life, but they have their own life. Oh, that's right. There's a bigger thing going on here. And then to hold this world lightly as we go through, right? Because that's the real story. Then we're looking to wake up and to be free inside our own energy field. All right, let me just see what that, okay. So closing up here is this idea of being able to live from this sweet spot in the nervous system, right? If we feel ourselves clutching and getting hard, I want you to, just be kind, kind, kind. Beauty is strength, Spirit has taught me. That's been a big lesson for me, that beauty is strength, softness is power. And I learned that a little bit in Peru. I was in a ceremony and so many people were following around me, and we were walking up a hill in the middle of the ceremony, and I just kept focusing on beauty. And any of my ceremonies that I've done, I've learned I find beauty and I focus on it. And often people around me are like falling apart, but I'm so trained and I've learned that beauty is powerful. So I'll just anchor there and do the work. So okay. All right. I guess that's kind of it. We're going to go into the heart now and do a final release, or, start exploring, getting some things moving. I guess I forgot that one slide. If you sum up the whole book, is basically there's two things that make us happy and healthy, is a light heart and an expanded energy field. So we don't just kind of keep staying in the body. You start, you just start practicing. So I wake up today and I say, God is, that's right. That's right. I'm this eternal being. I'm infinite. And you start connecting to your infinite nature and then living from that as you go. So that's the punchline to the book, is basically constantly open your heart and constantly expand your energy field. And it's infinite. And you only get to find more beauty and more glory and more joy. Does anyone have any comments before we go into the final meditation?
I have one comment.
Okay, who's this?
This is Don.
Hi, Don. Nice to hear you.
I was wondering if, instead of feeling it within your body, these points of discontinuity, if you were, what if it is occurring in your mind primarily?
So that's a good question, Don. What prompts that question?
Well, it's generally where I hold thoughts that aren't conducive, or that are definitely where my stress goes, where you find yourself very guarded, very vigilant.
Yeah.
I know when I do the mind mirror, I'm very much, if I'm out amongst other people, I'm very much in a high gamma state.
Yeah, I've struggled a lot with that. So here's my question. So you're saying, I know, okay, so you're basically saying you're in high gamma and you're kind of feeling like you're stuck up there. Is that right?
At certain
Or not?
times, yes, not always there.
Yeah. Okay. And see, that is why, that is the tough part of gamma, right? And Judith knows I've struggled with this. So that idea of being able to ground. And one of the best ways to do that is really slow breathing to help yourself come down. Because that's the thing about gamma. I call them gamma attacks. You wake up, I don't know about you guys, but I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm in gamma attacks, right? And again, or wake up in light, or you wake up, it could be that I was maybe out body traveling and I came back to the body and I just went boom and I got like slammed in my body and I'm wide awake, right? So I will tell you, as I've struggled a lot with this for many years, is just a lot. I mean, grounding and more grounding, because you basically said, well, you're stuck in. It sounded as though you were saying it's the stress is in my mind, but I'll tell you that if your mind's that engaged, then you're kind of stuck up above the body, and it's a pulling up, and it's a pulling up, there's a pulling up. And so it's been a journey for me, journey, just down. And that's what I would suggest. And it's been a journey. And I used to say to Spirit, my God, could I just stop working on grounding, please? Like, please, why do I have to spend so much of my life on grounding? Like silliness, right? And I really think is actually an illness. I think it was, I got exposed to mold poisoning. Pregnancy, illness helped me to actually, I feel like those illnesses were recalibrations for me to help me get grounded and deeper. So I'm sorry, I don't know if that helps at all, but I hear what you're saying when you said it's in my mind, not my body. Those high frequencies, they're powerful. They're high frequencies, and if it's like running a current, and it's not if the current's not grounded, it causes problems, right? So we have to ground that high frequency and bring it down so it can be used. If we pull up out of the body too much, it causes all sorts of stress. So, is that helpful at all, Don?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So I spent years walking. Bring my awareness to my feet when I walk all the time. I'm constantly, and love, bringing a lot of love, and sweetness. Okay. Anyone else have anything? Sweetness is really good. Not happiness, sweetness. Okay. All right. So we're going to finish up with a heart exploration. And I talk a lot in the book about knowing your energetic landscape. So we're going to kind of do a diagnostic of what is our heart's energetic landscape. And then we're going to practice going into the space in front of the heart and around. Okay. So just allowing ourselves to settle back onto the chair. I love working with mind mirror people because you know what I'm talking about. So fun. All right. And the beauty just gets better. It's just, I fall more in love with this work all the time. All right, here we go. There's no end to this gorgeousness. Where's my music? Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, so allowing ourselves to luxuriate in love. So maybe imagine you could to even gently stretch a little bit or whatever, allowing energy to go to your periphery, down to your feet, out your hands, above the head. And bring to mind something that's easy to love. It's often a child or a pet or gardening, but bring to mind something that's easy to love. Noticing how the energy field in the body shifts. And now imagine that there is a red cross on the chest, just a cross to divide the chest into quadrants. And with your kind awareness, poke your awareness into each of the quadrants on your chest, in your heart center area. So you're going to take a moment and gently poke into each of the quadrants and see if you can feel the quality of each of the quadrants. And now find the quadrant that feels the most expanded, the most open, the most free. And see if you can allow your kind awareness to roam throughout there. What's it like to explore that openness, that expansiveness, that freedom? And moving your kind awareness out into the field in front of you. Even pressing your shoulders down, that helps heart coherence, getting rid of the tension in the shoulder blades. And really explore, how does that expansive feeling feel? And now go to the quadrant that feels the most congested and tight. And see if you can bring that expansive and openness from that one quadrant over to the space that feels more tight and congested. Kind of spreading that openness over to the other area. And can it move in and around and through any tightness in the chest? And now see if you can spread that expansiveness to all four quadrants. And notice if there's any tightness in the chest area, and allow your kind awareness to go hang out in that area and see what emotions or thoughts or images come up for you. Be kind, sweet, we're kind of doing the same thing in reverse now. We're going to go find the gripping and then figure out the emotional challenge that's with that gripping. So trust your intuition, any memories that come up, any situations, when you hold yourself in that gripping, or where it is, and we can allow it to move. Taking a moment and seeing if you could surrender it to spirit or whatever works for you. And just say, you know what? I don't want this anymore. I want to give this up. You could imagine putting it in a balloon and having it taken away. Imagining it dissolved into light. You're setting this intention with your subconscious saying, you know what? I'm finished with this. This is over. Letting it go into the field around you somehow, whatever works for you. And allow yourself to feel an appreciation move into the area. noticing that you're noticing something different about the same old situation. How can we move into appreciation? And then see if you can find something else to appreciate about that or about something else, keeping the area open and expanded into the space in front of you. Stretching out into appreciation. The interesting thing is when we let go, we become teachable. And we don't have to be so clever. And we will be guided to do the right thing when we're meant to do it. We don't need to be so vigilant if we're teachable. So now, seeing if you can spread out into even more appreciation and love. Building capacity. Maybe feeling the love all around your chest and upper back, upper arms. Spreading that sweetness out to maybe 3 feet from the body, all the way around, above and below. Maybe go 6 feet out from the body and above the head and below the feet. And you may notice there's places where your field feels a little concave or whatever. Those are just places to work. That's all. No big. Seeing if you can spread out even further. And the physicists tell us that we are connected to all of the universe. What if we could become so spacious with no boundaries? And we can feel the vibrancy of our connection to the whole. That maybe the edges of our skin become blurred. Offer one skill, kind of go back a bit, but people liked this. Imagine that you have a pool net and you're gonna sweep your body through the pool net as you bring up the net through your feet to your legs, all the way up the body. And what we're gonna do as we go through the pool net is anything that's not you, let it go into the pool net and have it go above your head, cleanse it and let it go to the universe. Let it go, it's not you, let it go. We'll try it in the other direction, the net coming down over our head and shoulders, swiping away anything that's not us. Let it go. As it goes down over the center of the torso, hips, legs, feet. Let it go. Taking a moment and appreciating sitting in your own essence. Infinite nature. How good it feels to feel that freedom. This is the truth of who we are. And now seeing yourself go through the rest of the day and seeing if you can stay this expanded. And already you might feel a contraction in your field. So we're going to prepave that. Imagine that you can stay expanded and open as you go through maybe some challenging things through the day. You're prepaving yourself to stay expanded. Seeing yourself go to sleep at night. Always good to go to sleep with a sweet thought. The wish fulfilled is called. Tolerating beauty, tolerating sweetness. Sleeping through the night, and then tomorrow morning when you open your eyes, bringing your awareness to love and God and sweetness and goodness. Seeing love go ahead of you during the day. And knowing that at any moment, we don't have to be so clever. We can get really simple and be teachable. And we will do the right thing. And how good it feels to hold life that lightly. And choosing things when we're animated, not out of so much obligation and duty. And even if we have something we have to do, how light can our heart be? So you're pre-paving that even though you're doing an arduous task, how can you do it in a light manner? And Spirit has these gorgeous ways of answering these. I've become intolerant of being miserable, and Spirit will help me. So just taking a moment now and appreciating yourself for your own journey, for where you've been, how far you've come. Honoring yourself. Allowing yourself to feel blessed and whole and complete. How good it feels, and when you're ready, allowing your awareness to become aware of the room. It's just our opportunity to learn to build capacity for sweetness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If I could just say, we do peace meditation research. If you go to peacefulcities.org, we are starting a year-long thing with the Monroe Institute. And we are, every day you'll be led to a meditation that will be inspired by this work. I'm trying to find my thing. That will be inspired by this work. So this way you can keep expanding. I made those meditations to work with these understandings. So it's at peacefulcities.org. We're creating something called the Legion of Light. We know that certainly the news is saying that 2023 is looking like it's going to have some challenges, and so the goal is with Monroe, we're going to be bathing this planet in light every day, and through this 20-minute meditation, and then in the last part of the meditation, you can use your own intentions for your own life. But the whole thing is to open the heart, expand the field, send intentions to the globe, and send intentions to your life. So peacefulcities.org. Go back to it. Right now, the homepage is being redone. So just if you could, I'd really appreciate all of us voting with our hearts. So thank you.
That was beautiful, Bethany. Just
Thank you.
beautiful. Namaste to you.
Likewise.
In the first meditation, just for some feedback, I just love the idea of bringing kindness to yourself. And I actually felt like startled at first, and in the realization that I'm not very kind to myself. But then when I followed the instruction, I felt like my higher self was bringing kindness, so that it was an immediate connection that lasted a long time after the meditation. I really love it. Supercharged on this last one too. You were indeed a meditation master.
Thanks. It's fun.
You can only teach from where you've been. So I appreciate that you worked so long and hard, in your own life to do what your three mentors did, which was to that constant awareness through body signals and feedback in general from the world, and constantly cleansing. And it's a universal path, of course, but you set it out in your book in such a comprehensive and detailed way, and it's such a friendly read. Everybody should have a copy of it and share it with everyone they know.
So fun. Thank you.
I see there's something in the chat. SB said agreed. And I guess, we would ask if anyone has any feedback before we close. Anything you'd like to say to Bethany, just unmute. Questions or comments?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the pre-sale. Enjoyed it.
Good deal. Good deal. Thanks.
Also, thank you, Bethany. I enjoyed it.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you. I hope I inspired us all to, like I said, even when we're passing, we can be using these skills, right? To just lift. It's going to be good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very, very much.
A question for you. You mentioned in your Peaceful Cities org work that you're starting with this
Legion of
focusing
Light.
attention on the world.
Yes.
And then in the end, coming back to ourselves.
Yes.
And I'm curious about you and the people that you work with. How much is this helping people start with themselves, like self-healing in the beginning before expanding out into the world?
Yeah, well, we start the meditation. It's a 20-minute protocol, 3 minutes anchoring in the body, and then we start with helping with the heart. So we're cleansing the heart first, then sending blessings out to the world, and then I added the last 5 minutes to self, because I'm wanting people to have their own experience of how to use intention. It's peace meditation research, so we're basically teaching people how to use intention, and then we send it to a city. This is how it started. You send it to a city, and then we look at the violence data to see how much of an impact our intentions have made. And then at the very end, I started adding the last 5 minutes where we did it for our own life, because I wanted people to experience the same gifts in themselves. So it's a little bit of both, because once we expand in the field, then we see our lives differently, So I'm getting people to practice that on a day-to-day basis. It's like, that's the consciousness athlete. You become an athlete. You're conditioning your field to stay open. You're conditioning your heart to stay open. Very fun.
Fabulous work. And I'm so glad Bethany was working as a mind mirror monitor at, I guess, the last program, discovery program there in December. And she's such a go-getter. She just started talking to people and got them all excited. And so now Monroe's part of this effort to...
Well, you helped with that, Judith. I was so thrilled. I was like, well, I mean, you said it. I was going to keep my mouth shut, but then you mentioned it, and then it would just and then people would come up and they'd ask me, and so thank you for mentioning it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's phenomenal. She works with a statistician, and they really are very data-based, and people are very committed. Hundreds of people meditate together, and with the city in mind, and there are real changes. I mean, this light we're talking about is the healing light of the cosmos. So, I love the 2 meditations you did, and we'll practice the kindness meditation, especially both of them. Any other comments from anyone else?
Judith, I want to say a big thank you to Bethany, because I absolutely loved all exercises that we did, and I resonate a lot, Bethany, with those keys to openness, because I had in mind to do this program, and I love beauty. You mentioned forgiveness, you mentioned sweetness, and openness there is as well, obviously. That's where you feel kind of grasped, or basically where you are stuck, and that's unhealthy. So I remember I first time came across this study in Vedas, and then I decided, oh, one day I'll put all these keys, you know, to openness, to wholeness together, and then go through them, exploring them thoroughly, because trying to figure out which keys work best for you, right? And how you can bring more of these keys into your life. So I have this program called 10 Doors to Resourceful State. And resource, it's more like returning to the source, right? Where we can get this wholeness, like returning back and getting all resources we need, right? So, and one more comment, sweetness as well is there. And my mind is still thinking Russian. And in Russian, the word sweetness actually has funny origin. It, if I look at the origin, the root of this word actually means like kind of musical harmony. And sweetness will mean with musical harmony. So Russian language is very funny when you start deciphering the words or the meaning behind the usual words that we normally don't see unless we have a like special focus. And I was thinking, isn't it beautiful? You say, tune in to sweetness, more sweetness. And in my mind, it's constant like returning to this kind of harmony. We are tuning back to harmony. And I always question which harmony, you know, is implied, because if the mood in Russian language means tuning, so it's like you're in a bad mood, you're out of tune. So it also kind of gives you this hint about the vibrational, I don't know, sacred order behind all things, you know.
Oh, that's so fun. Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And if you do write that book, let me know, because I'd love to see what you've had. Right? Yeah.
So I'm due writing the book, and then actually after just delivering the chapter, I decide, oh, that's a real course you can do, and it would be good to hook up and see like how I respond, what are my triggers or landmarks, how we used to say. But yeah, I love it. I love it how you also, you know, just in one even little exercise, you put all of them together.
You know, if you don't mind, let me just elaborate on that a little bit, because I was raised as a little girl. We worked hard. Like we worked like little men. We carried bricks. And so I find it so funny, because I was raised by this depression mom who everything had to be practical and beauty was not important. Right. So I had this kind of really harsh childhood. And then to know that the second half of my life is about beauty. And I remember when I first stopped that, I had tears kind of come down my eyes. And because the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we could not value it, because I didn't value it. Right. Because I just came from, it's not valued, you know, like the beauty is it's superfluous. It doesn't matter. And I always remember this one quote, and it was, I forgot who said it. Maybe it was Hafiz or Rumi, and it said something like, if you have only $2 left to your name, spend $1 to buy a loaf of bread and the other dollar to buy a hyacinth. Mm-hmm. And I would just ruminate over that. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? And I have come to understand that hyacinth is the strength and the power. It's the resourcefulness to keep going, you know, to find that next loaf of bread, right? So beauty is non-negotiable now, right?
But
it's that important.
What you're sharing, the beauty is the other kind of nourishment that we need.
Yes.
That we absolutely need.
And I feel like our youth today are so in their head, they're so far from beauty, and we're withering without it. It is
unless we teach them.
Yeah, exactly. But then they don't
my
value
grandkids have it. My grandkids have a deep appreciation. All my children, because I always did, and it's just a given for them. We try to make the world more beautiful than it was when we got there.
Sweet. Oh wow, so fun. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that.
It's good alpha.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bethany.
My pleasure, Miss Oksana. And I meant to say in the beginning, thank you for all you do to keep our stray cats together. So you work so hard on all these details. I mean, I'm always impressed.
And Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
Judith,
for your contributions to it, Bethany.
I
My
invite
pleasure.
everyone to start sharing this program and have a look at the book, because we at least have this program which will be released for free. So it's already a good starting point to let more and more, to invite more light workers.
Yes, exactly. We need them.
Thank you, dear ones. We'll see you next month.